What is a cringe moment that you experienced in your life that still haunts you when you think about it? I was 13 at a female's family friendly party. All the kids were on the second floor. We were all dancing and trying to outdo each other in a comical way. I decided to get on all fours and pretend to spank myself, wondering why no one was laughing at me. So I tried harder. Everyone gave me a weird look. I turned around. Her father, who happens to be a minister, was just standing there looking at me. He didn't say anything, just turned around and went back downstairs. 19 years later still haunts me. Edit. Thanks, Red Bearski, for the Reddit gold. I was in community college at the time and two of my friends and I were starring in a student-run production of the complete works of William Shakespeare, abridged. Awesome show. You can find the whole original cast production on YouTube. The whole show is 3 goofy guys acting out all the parts in every one of Shakespeare's works, so there's a lot of running around and instant costume changes. Our core costume was velvet shorts, puffy shirts, purple stockings, and Chuck Taylors. We had been doing a lot of dress rehearsals to get used to costume changes and our budget was low, so we had opted for the cheap stockings which began to fray at the crotch. About a week before our first show we decided to do a little promo show on the sidewalk in a big downtown open air mall to get people interested. The show was going great. There was a decent crowd around and we had just finished the bit where we rapped Othello, the Moor of Venice, when I see them in the very front. 2 college-age girls are leaning in towards one another and whispering and smiling and pointing at my crotch. I look down and realize that the end of my cock had been out of the front of my shorts for God knows how long. All the animated movement and the bad pantyhose and the loose fly of the shorts had come together to create the perfect storm. I swiftly grabbed a kilt and wrapped it around myself and shuffled away. Once we took our bow, I made sure to take a needle and thread to those ducking shorts when we got back. My face was so red. Dear God, there were children there. TLDR equals I did a street performance only to realize that my D had been out the entire time. I was in the lobby of a guest house in Thailand waiting for our car to pick us up. The manager was a tiny lady who was standing with us and she had been so lovely to us during our stay. She spoke very little English, but when the car pulled up she raised her arms up to me as I stood up and I assumed that she wanted a hug from me, so I obliged. Even though I recalled it was impolite to hug a Thai person. Turns out she was gesturing for me to pull the cord on the ceiling fan in order to turn the fan on, because she couldn't reach it and I was tall. So, ducking. Awkward. I was a rather fat middle schooler on Valentine's Day when they were handing out candygrams, which were a piece of candy you could buy at lunch that would be delivered in homeroom to your significant other on Valentine's Day. A low point in every year for me as a kid. Never got anything. Never expected anything. But in 7th grade or so the teacher handed me a candygram from the hottest, most popular girl in the class. It was a paragraph love letter. I could not believe it. I was elated. Until the teacher realized that it was to the most popular girl in the class from someone who happened to have the same first name as myself. I had to hand it to her and return to my seat with nothing. I still think back to that time and want to throw up. Edit. This has been the most surprising reception to a post I've made on here. You guys, for the most part, are incredibly kind and I am happy that you enjoyed my little anecdote. And thanks for the Reddit gold. When I was around 14 years old I used to play video games all day. Actually a certain MMORPG which is not WoW. So my mother made me go to a group therapy for gaming addicted people. So we made our way there and I enter a room full of people at least twice my age, and after the door was locked, to have a secure location to talk, it hit me. The German term for gaming addiction can refer to gambling as well. So here I was, 14 years old in a room full of people who have lost their possessions, family over a severe gambling addiction that has ruined their lives, and they make me talk about my gaming addiction. Lots of fun. Edit. The game was Lineage 2. Mom decided she wanted to repaint my room in junior high. My bed was pushed against the wall, so it had to be moved away a little to paint. As she pulled the bed away, she discovered at least 100 crusty cum socks that I had forgotten about over the years that I had stuffed between the bed and the wall so she wouldn't find them. The look of disgust on her face still haunts me. Oh God. This question strikes home. When I was in my final grade of the elementary school, 12 I got overly self-aware of the fact that my D leaks, that is, piss droplets in boxes due to not shaking enough. So I figured one summer day that the thing that my mother kept next to the toilet must be to prevent this. So the brilliant 12-year-old me took a menstrual pad and put it in my boxers. Happy that my problem has been solved. Later that day I was in a hurry to catch a bus. So I ran, getting pretty sweated during this. But, lucky me, I caught the bus and even found in the front row my math teacher and her daughter, which was in my class. Also, I happened to have a crush on her, which doesn't help this story at all. I paid the driver for the ride and said hello while passing them, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they were looking at me somewhat weird. I was walking to my seat when I heard the voice of an old lady who stood behind me in line. "Young man, I believe you have dropped something." I turn around. Everyone, including driver, my teacher, my crush and the old lady who was in the line behind me, were staring at me. I was mortified when I saw the reason. The menstrual pad has slipped from my sweaty boxers through my shorts and lied in the middle of the passage in its sweaty, crumpled, bead glory. So yeah, the rest of the school year didn't go well. Neither did my love interest with the crush. I had no idea back then that you are supposed to use a sticker to make the menstrual pad stay in your pants. So, I guess that's one lesson learned. And yes, I'm male. I went camping with some friends once and we ate some shrooms. At one point I had to go to the bathroom, so I went to find the bathroom on the campground, did my business, and went back to our campsite. I grabbed a beer from the cooler and it was Bud Light, and I thought that was weird because I don't drink Bud Light and neither do any of my friends. But I just wanted something cold in my mouth, so I didn't care. I sat down at the fire and started drinking my beer, and I realized everybody had gone quiet and was staring at me. First I was like, why aren't you guys talking? Did I fart? Then why are you staring at me like that? Then it clicked, oh my god, you're not my friends, where am I? I went to the wrong campsite and just plopped my tripping ass down at the fire with a family of 4, a husband and wife and 2 kids. They just looked horrified. I'll never forget the look on their faces. This was years ago, so maybe the kids are on Reddit now. If so and you're reading this, I'm sorry for ruining your camping trip. Background: I was tortured by pretty much my entire class in elementary school, and I had a crush on this popular boy who treated me like dirt, like everyone else. On our 6th grade field trip, we were all sitting around having lunch, and someone dared him to kiss me. He starts coming towards me and everyone is laughing and chanting like this is the most hilarious thing ever. I grabbed my backpack and ran. My backpack wasn't zipped. All my stuff went flying. I had to turn around and go back to pick up my cassette tapes and Walkman and stuff while everyone just laughed. Edit. Thanks for the Reddit gold. It's unbelievable how many people said they could relate to this. Big hugs all around. No one deserves this kind of crap. I threw a huge tantrum in kindergarten because it was foot-long hot dog day, and I had a packed lunch. So much so that my mom came to school with lunch money so I could get a hot dog, which promptly gave me some of the worst food poisoning of my life. Not something I did, but back in primary school, grade school for the US, we used to have assemblies every Monday for the whole school. And because my school was a public school and not particularly wealthy, we didn't have a hall. So we all had to grab our chairs and take them to a big sheltered area we had. And about 20 minutes into the assembly, a kindergarten kid arrives. The principal stops her announcement and asks the kid why he's late. In front of the whole school, this kid yells out, "I did a big poo." Everyone laughed except the kid. When I was younger, I was obsessed with the Phantom of the Opera and decided to reenact it, with my parents as the supporting actors. I made a mask out of a white paper plate, wore a cape, and tried to perform the musical numbers as my mom filmed. College was a strange time. Walked in on my friend's dad jerking off. I got really drunk a while ago and entered a dance competition in a bar where I was the only white guy. The fact that I won does little to stop the cringe. I had an oral examination board when I was in the Navy, during which I just completely froze up and forgot almost everything I knew about what I was getting examined on. I could barely get a coherent string of words out. 3 hours of me just sitting there like an ass whilst my captain and 2 more of my superior officers just asked me questions I couldn't answer whilst looking at me like I was the stupidest man alive. It was excruciating. The most spectacular failure of my whole life. I'd spent months preparing and it just looked like I'd done no work for it at all. Suffice to say, my performance was so bad I got carpeted and did not get a second chance. No idea what happened to me. I could answer most of the questions now. No sweat. I ended up leaving the Navy very soon after that. That was about 6 years ago. I couldn't care less about not being in the Navy anymore. It was the right choice for me and I'm more than happy with what I do now. But oh boy, just thinking about that interview is enough to make my skin crawl. Edit. I managed to spell stupidest incorrectly. Duh. I found my dad's porn stash and stole one of the VHS's around 6th grade art for learning and stuff. Anyway, I dropped it on the hardwood floor and busted the flap off when I went to put it back. I placed it back in the closet anyway. It was gone the next day, and he looked at me funny at the dinner table the next night. I always cringe thinking about this. Edit. Forgot to mention. It was butt jammer 6. Here's one thing I hate about grocery store lines. They're all separate. I would much prefer that everyone wait in a single line and move to the next available cashier. Like in customs. Because we all know how much we hate waiting in line and seeing everyone around us go much quicker. Well, I was having a particularly bad day, and I chose a particularly slow line in the grocery store. Ridiculously slow. Lines twice as long were sailing through, and I wasn't moving at all. And then I realized the problem. Arsehole cashier was taking his sweet time, swiping groceries through one at a time, using only one hand. He didn't care. Some teenager with a scowl on his face, probably forced to work there by his parents. Finally I'd had enough. I snapped. This line is huge. Things would go a lot quicker if you used two hands. The two people in front of me turned and stared with looks of horror and disgust. And finally, the cashier, with a totally blank look on his face, turned toward me as well. His left arm had been amputated at the shoulder. My cousin said I looked good and was losing weight. Without thinking I said thanks. You too. Then I realized she just had a miscarriage. Still cringe thinking about it. All those jackass imitation videos I made with my friends in high school. When I was 10, my dad had his co-workers over to our house with their families for a Christmas party. My mom was doing the whole hostess thing and had been stressed out. I went to use the bathroom in the middle of the party and it stunk something fierce. Being 10 and a social idiot, I then walked out into the big room with the party going on and yelled while waving my hands in a smelly motion, WHEWW. WHO made the bathroom stink so bad. My poor horrified and embarrassed mom's face when admitting it was her. Was working at my first job at an ice cream shop. Customer's order came out to $7.50 and he handed me cash. I counted a Lincoln and 4 Washingtons. Perplexed as to why he'd handed me $9 for $7.50. I asked keep the change. He looked at me like I had 3 heads. Then he got this sympathetic, condescending look on his face as if I was retarded. I guess so, he said. I looked down again and realized he had handed me $8. I tried to explain that I had miscounted, but he interrupted me by saying no, that's fine. Keep it, help put you through college. Just the pure condescending tone made me feel like a complete idiot. I still think about it sometimes and cringe. TLDR. Caught my dad having sex with a chimpanzee. Told a straight kid I was gay in hopes he was. He got freaked out and never spoke to me again. Ended up telling my high school what happened and got laughed at a lot. One time in high school I sent a girl I had a crush on a super embarrassing love letter over MySpace Messenger. It was terrible. Thinking back, I still can't believe I did that. When I was about 12, my dad had a client over for dinner. Halfway through dinner I felt an apocalyptic thunderpoo trundling towards freedom, so I urgently excused myself and ran upstairs to the toilet. Our bathroom was at the top of our stairs, and the toilet faced the door, which I'd left open in my haste. I still don't know why I did this, but once everything was clear down below I decided to sit back down on the toilet and helicopter my wiener. I'd only recently worked that I could do this, and I guess I fancied doing that instead of heading back down to dinner. Needless to say, I suddenly think I hear footsteps coming up the stairs. My first instinct is to mash my junk back into my pants and act like I was washing my hands. But I didn't get that far because my scumbag brain thought it would better to try and close the door instead. During that moment of indecision, the shining top of this client's bald head came into view. It all happened in slow motion, the sound of his imminent arrival, my indecision about how to cover whatever the duck I was doing, his head emerging from the edge of the staircase, and him staring directly at my still rotating D. He just stopped for a second and turned around. I didn't look at him for the rest of the dinner. TLDR. Twirled my willy at a businessman. Edit. My word. Reddit gold. Thank you chaps. I'll be sure to do another willy whiz in honor of your generosity. That would be a speech class in college when the one and only week when we would be videotaped. I began my demonstration speech by taking a big bite of a peanut butter sandwich, and, likely due to a combination of nerves, dry mouth, dry sandwich, and lack of rehearsal, was basically unable to swallow and spend half of my time limit choking on the sandwich. Ugh. When my boss invited me to a big, important business dinner, as I'm French, he asked me to open the bottle of wine. I failed. My skin went to 20% to 250% humidity in 15 seconds. Had a major crush on a guy in high school. Went to his house for a bonfire with the rest of my friends. Hugged him goodbye. Turned to leave and after taking 2 steps I smacked my head on a tree branch and fell down. I'm awkward as duck. Oh boy, I have a good one. A few years ago I was good friends with the lead singer of an internationally renowned indie band, not saying who as I don't want them to find this. We had a falling out. A few months later, their next album came out, with a very suspicious song on it that ripped lines from emails this singer sent me and seemed to make fun of me. After 2 years of not speaking and stewing about this awful song, I sent them a drunk email vehemently abusing them for writing such a nasty song about me. Their reply? That was about my ex-girlfriend. Oh zero, I have no idea how you'd think it was about you. I was so mortified I didn't reply and never told anyone. TL. Doctor, I'm such an egoist. I thought a famous band wrote a nasty song about me, but was incorrect and cringe even thinking about it. Oh yes. Crying over the phone to my high school ex after she cheated on me by ducking some guy in a forest at a party. That voicemail was played to many a person. Also, leaving the phone next to my speakers while James Blunt You Beautiful played to the current GF. Man, high school me was quite the charmer. Middle school, we were asked to use single words on paper to describe ourselves. I looked up synonyms for weird, and got queer. Didn't know what that meant, but all of my classmates did. Couldn't convince anyone I was straight for the rest of my school days. Never got a date. Hide and seek during a family party. 12-year-old me decided to hide in the bathtub. I pulled the shower doors closed and waited. Nobody found me, but within 2-3 minutes, my aunt came in to take a leak. She didn't notice me. I kept quiet too long. I had to commit. The sound of her piss trickle still haunts me. Oh god, why? Drew a giant picture of Bam Margera for an art project. Oh god. They hung it in the main lobby. This one happened last week. I saw a new guy at the office, walking to the exit just a few feet ahead of me, and he was using the same backpack I was. So I said, hey, nice backpack, and he turned around to me and said, huh, and I repeated nice backpack while I took mine off to show to him it was the same. It wasn't. Not even close. Someone told me to visualize myself putting a toothpick under my toenail and kicking a wall. Well, let's see. When I was in middle school I had just started getting my period. Unfortunately, at the time, I didn't know that I had very heavy and long periods, which would later cause me to get anemia. One day before I go to school my period comes and I have absolutely no pads. Tampons scared the shit out of me at the time. So, my dumbass middle school self decides to just stuff some TP in my underwear to line it and I should be fine. Yeah. Well, I was wrong. Not even the first class passes and I'm leaking. Bad. Oblivious me doesn't really realize this until I get up from my seat and see a giant red stain. I ran out of that classroom so fast and called my mom to come pick me up. Cried for about the rest of the day as my mom tried to console me. Ugh. Even thinking of it now sucks. My really hot female friend said to me that she wanted to be together with me if she didn't have a boyfriend, while the two of us were dancing in the club. As to D, I still cringe to this day. How about all of them? Sometimes I'll randomly think of a terrible moment, which almost always starts with this downward spiral where I relive every awkward moment I've ever had. Oh, hello boner in 6th grade math class. I'll follow you up nicely with that girl who walked right in front of me as I was in mid-spit while smoking a cigarette outside of class once. I went away on a school trip with a bunch of people to participate in an art competition. It was a week long, and I looked forward to it quite a bit. I need to preface this story with the fact that I'm someone who rarely cries, not usually very emotional about trivial things. Arrived at the place, and I found suddenly that I wanted to go home. I wasn't interested in what we were doing. The accommodation sucked, etc. To my unending embarrassment, I started crying one day, and I could not stop. I remember being bewildered by my sudden onset of tears, and not being able to stop it. The one teacher was incredibly concerned. She was convinced something terrible had happened that I was keeping to myself. The stupid, lame reason was that I simply didn't want to be there. Somehow, years of not really crying hard at anything burst forth, and I cried periodically for 2 days. My mom called me, and something she said just made me stop. After that, I had fun. I'm still kind of stumped at what all that was about, and I cringe every time I remember it. On the ominous side, that incident was the last time I cried that I can remember. Even more embarrassingly, I was 15 when all that happened, not 10 as you might think. I'm 20 now. I shudder to think what random incident might prompt my next TERF festival. TLDR. Started crying like a baby for no reason whatsoever. Couldn't make myself stop for 2 days. I usually almost never cry. It was horrifying. In 3rd grade, I sneezed and farted at the same time. 15 years later and it still haunts me. My girlfriend's mom walked in on me eating her daughter's pussy on top of the washing machine. We were both 16. I still feel embarrassed by that. This makes me want to die every time I think about it. When I was around 6 or 7, my best friend lived next door to me, and they were the well-to-do type because they had an answering machine, while my family did not. This was circa 1995 PS. So, I never really thought much about how an answering machine worked. I mean, I got the general concept, but I am an idiot. Anyway, I would call their house before coming over and ask if Michael was home. From time to time they would be gone to Disneyland or making wine or helping disadvantaged children or whatever rich people do with their rhyme, and I would leave a message. At first I'd leave messages like, "Oh, you're not home. Just me calling. Call me back," click. After a while I realized that you could listen to the message back. Gradually I would start to leave more messages just to listen to myself talk because I was a little narcissistic douche. Eventually I would leave messages that went something like this: "I love Danielle. I want to have a sex with her. We would have a sex all the time. Danielle is so hot, mind you." I really had no idea what sex even was, but I wanted to do it. And since I was a dumbass and didn't realize you could delete the message, my poor neighbors would arrive home to these pornographic gems. Needless to say, they made my parents listen to these messages and they talked to me about it. All I remember from the talk was that I wanted to die from shame, and I had no idea what sex actually was. Why couldn't you just delete the messages?